Hey, this is Meridith Elliott Powell. You know what time it is. It is time for Thrive, the show where we dive into the strategies, discuss the steps, everything that you need to know to sell, to lead, to strategically grow in today's massively uncertain marketplace. I am really excited about our guest today because we are going to cover some topics that everybody in business today really wonders about. How do you gain visibility? How do you get above the white noise? How do you stand out from your competition in a world that is becoming more and more crowded? Well, today I've got an incredible expert for you on that topic. So hang in, we're going to discuss that and so much more. All right, Meridith Elliott Powell back here. My favorite time of the week, the time to really talk about the strategies we need to succeed in today's marketplace. And today, I want to welcome media expert Mickie Kennedy to the show. Welcome, Mickie.
Well, thanks for having me.
I'm really excited. I think that this is a topic that so many business owners want to know more about, really feel like the only way to get media attention and get the exposure and the credibility that you want and you need is to spend a lot of money. And that is money that these business owners, entrepreneurs, do not have. So before we dive into this subject, back up a little bit and tell the audience a little bit about you and how you gained your expertise and experience in this field.
Right. So I graduated about 30 years ago, or close to that, with a Master's of Fine Arts in Creative Writing with an emphasis in poetry. So my career plan was to wait tables and write poetry. And I did that for a summer after graduating and realized that, 10, 12-hour shifts standing on your feet is really taxing. So I got hired at a telecom research firm after that because I started applying for office jobs. And as employee number 3, I wore a lot of job titles, but one of the things they wanted me to do was to write press releases and send them out. The owner had previously done that, and I inherited his Rolodex of fax numbers. And I would spend a whole day programming a fax machine and hitting send, and not much happened. And the owner was like, yeah, it doesn't really do anything. And I was like, why are we wasting a whole day on this if it's not doing anything? So I started looking at what we were sending out and what journalists were actually publishing. And the one thing I noticed is journalists like a story arc. And we were publishing a lot of data numbers, and we just felt like the media likes numbers, which is true, but we weren't really putting it in context. We had just published Caribbean telecom traffic, and there was one country that had a big anomaly where it had more incoming and outbound traffic to and from the United States than basically all the other Caribbean countries combined. And I didn't know, but I peeled back and figured out that at the time it was the 1-900 call center. And almost all 1-900 numbers were routed through there. And for those listening who don't know what a 1-900 number is, they were very popular in the early 1990s. You could call a 1-900 number, and you could get a pre-recorded horoscope, or you could speak, live for maybe $2 or $3 a minute to someone who could give you pet advice or love stuff, psychics, all kinds of things. If there was something that you had expertise on, you could monetize it with a 1-900 number. And they all had variable rates, and they were charged to your landline phone number. And so when I redrafted that press release and sent it out focusing on that, it got picked up by The Economist, Financial Times, Washington Post, Wall Street Journal, and 3 telecom trade publications. And so I felt like maybe I'm onto something. And so I continued to do story-based releases and focusing on the context and what the interesting story is. Because at the end of the day, the journalist is a gatekeeper trying to decide what's a worthy story that will either educate or entertain their audience. And if you sort of, build in stories and interests that would be able to pique their interest, then you're going to have a much higher success rate. And I just felt like I was becoming an expert at this, and I really wanted to do it for other businesses. And at the same time, as I was faxing, journalists would call and say, could you start emailing? And that gave me the idea for e-releases as electronic releases. And when we started, we were doing email distribution, and we've since switched over to newswire distribution. PR Newswire reached out to us years ago and liked what we were doing and said, hey, why don't you add newswire distribution to your service? And I really pushed for getting a national distribution because they were offering a discount on like a local distribution. And their national distribution is something that they currently charge close to $1,700 for a 600-word press release. And through us, it's about a quarter of the price. Rather than going directly through the wire. So it's a huge savings and gives you that access to the national distribution. That being said, you really have to have the right messaging, because I would say 97% of the press releases that go over the wire do not generate earned media. And that's what we call it when you get these articles written about you. And I think the reason is they look at what everybody else is doing and they sort of copy it. Oh, this person has a new hire. We have a new hire. Let's do a press release. And, it's very unlikely that outside of on the move sections in a trade publication or your local paper that you're going to get much coverage in regards to events like that.
So I have so many questions here. I love the fact that we have mentioned faxes, Rolodexes. Just really, really takes me back to the beginning of the career. But in today's marketplace, why is credibility and public relations, why is it important? Why does it matter for a business owner, for an entrepreneur?
It is the credibility that you get when a person reads about someone, and it's almost like an implied endorsement. They generally want to do business with you, and the conversion rates from an article are much superior than an ad. I mean, there's a lot of people that feel like if they have a 4% conversion rate from an ad landing page, they're doing really well. But I've had customers who say, I've gotten 300 visitors from this article and we got over 100 orders. And so, that's the kind of thing that can happen with an article, because the perception is you've been vetted. A journalist has looked at you. They felt like this is an interesting story, and they've objectively written about you. And that is much stronger and much more important in the marketplace than anything that you could say in an ad. And so does it all work the same way? Is an article just as good as a podcast, as good as a television interview? Is it all the same from a public relations and a credibility standpoint? I think all of it is a success when it comes to getting all of these pickups, but each one can be completely different in how it leads to your success. There are some that if it's a key trade publication and your buyers are right there, then that's more likely to generate leads and actual sales than if it was just your local newspaper writing an article about you, or maybe a general podcast where there's a lot of business people there, but maybe your actual audience doesn't make up a sizable amount of that population. So where does a business owner start? I mean, how do you begin even thinking about what to write about, what to push out there, what to put into a news release? Like you said, I mean, everybody's kind of doing things that are vanilla. How does one kind of figure out what is newsworthy? Right. So to that, I have a free masterclass that I put together of what are strategic releases and the 3% of releases that do get picked up and what you should focus on. And for anybody that's interested, it's at ereleases.com/plan, PLAN, and it's completely free, but it goes through the types of releases that I see getting picked up again and again. And if you were to build a PR campaign of 6 to 8 releases, which is what I tell people, always judge PR by a campaign and not an individual press release, because an individual press release could fail or work, but a series of strategic press releases is going to give you a better idea of what that PR campaign can achieve. And so, the types of releases that we focus on are story-based press releases. The most common release I get at eReleases is a product launch release. And often it's just, here's the product, here's a list of features, maybe even bulleted out, and a page to learn more. And for a journalist, that's not a lot there for them to write a story about. So, incorporating a use case study of someone who used your product, what their actual results were, having a quote by them, maybe even putting some numbers in there that are publicly available, like maybe the failure rate in your industry and why your product or solution is so important, can really show the value of what it is that you're offering.
Nice. So will you say that again for your free masterclass? Is it e-releases?
/plan, PLAN.
I would really, really encourage anybody. So when you send out e-releases, do they go out to all different sorts of publications? Do you choose which publications are best for you? I guess I'm trying to figure out if this is a little like the sales strategy, if it's a little like kind of shoot it all over the place, or a little more focused.
So it's a little bit of both. All of our stuff goes out through the wire, and there are outlets who look at everything that hit the wire. But there are also those that are looking for specific industries or trades. And so when a press release goes out, you indicate the intended trades that you want. The newswire also will pick appropriate trades if they felt like there's additional ones that apply to you. And so when a journalist says, hey, I'm interested in, say, telecom, they'll just see the telecom feed. And they can usually, with the login, customize that feed. So exclude stuff that they don't cover, or make sure that they definitely capture releases that have certain keywords and things like that. So it's a very curated list of press releases by headline that they can then drill down. And in the U.S., we basically have a duopoly of press release news wires. It's a Business Wire and PR Newswire. There's no need to be in both of them, but they represent the overwhelming majority of releases that go out there. There's other wires that you probably heard of that are not press release news wires, like the Associated Press, AP, Reuters, Dow Jones, and places like that. Their model is different. They don't run press releases. They run articles they've written and license that to other news agencies and places.
What are some of the biggest things that you think that people don't really know about press releases that they really do need to know about them?
I think the biggest thing is a lot of people feel like it's not appropriate time for me. I'm too small and I don't really matter right now. I'll wait till I'm bigger and larger. And what you have to realize is a journalist is often a curator, and they're putting the spotlight on new products, services, and solutions that their audience doesn't know about. And so being small is an advantage because it makes them feel like they're making more discoveries and bringing to light things that their audience isn't aware of. And so if you are very large and well known, it's less likely that a journalist is going to cover you.
Yeah. Is there a certain size business that you typically focus on?
We generally work with small businesses and startups, but including authors. So most of ours are 10 million in revenue or less. We have some exceptions, of course, but most people fall within that sort of revenue.
Okay. What when you look at the world of press releases and things, does AI impact it at all? And how is the world of PR and building credibility changing?
Right. So I think that the big thing about I'll talk about the second one first is the changing in PR and credibility. I think that the opportunities of getting out there with a wire and getting your message is going wider. There are people on social media that are given journalists access and using it. There are a lot of Instagram influencers who get images and video from press releases when a new clothing or fashion thing goes out, especially in cases where they don't have direct relationships with those companies. And I follow a guy on TikTok called Snackalator, and he does a weekly roundup of new grocery store snacks hitting shelves. And
Wow.
he brings all of the images out through press releases, and has cited that a few times, saying, "Oh, I can't tell if that's a glaze or not. This is just a photo that was provided with the press release, but I'm really looking forward to seeing that." So a lot of people are using it that are outside of traditional media, and that's very exciting. I think that, when it comes to, what to look forward to and focus on, I think at the end of the day, is it something that is interesting? Is it something that you can put an interesting spin on? One of the types of press releases that I've worked with the clients that never fails is doing an industry survey. And, doing a survey in your industry, taking their temperature on several questions that may be trending in your industry right now, as well as things that are just sort of happening in the backdrop of society, changes in the workplace, people not wanting to work in the office as much anymore. Are there issues around culture and things like that you could ask about? So there's lots of opportunities there to put a questionnaire out. And then you can partner with a smaller independent trade association within your industry. And the large ones, are very well known. They have their own PR, and they're not going to be a good partner for this. But the smaller ones, and they are out there if you do your research, are really good because their members are usually very loyal, and they are looking for PR opportunities themselves. So if you position it as, say, hey, could you send this survey out to your members in exchange for that? I'll mention you in a press release we'll be issuing over PR Newswire in the coming weeks. And more than 2/3 of the time, the first association we approach will say yes. And then, focus the press release on what the most surprising response was from the survey. Build out a page on your website that has all the questions and responses. Provide an amazing quote as to why you felt the numbers skewed a particular way, your analysis on that. And that's a really great way to stand out because it positions you as an expert in your industry. And there's no vetting that you have to do. It's just the fact that you authored that survey and put it out there. But it's a really great way to own that original data and get a lot of media attention around that.
Mickie, this has been amazing. We're just about at time, and I always like to end with 2 questions, and you can answer them in either direction. Obviously, how do people find out more about you? We're definitely going to put that masterclass in the show notes. But, here we are just kicking off 2025, and it is looking to be an incredibly uncertain type of year. What is your biggest and best advice for any of our entrepreneurs, any of our listeners out there? If they were going to focus on a top priority, what do you think they need to focus on, and what impact would you think it would make? And you can answer either question in either direction.
Right. So I think that, the thing that I would recommend is testing and trying lots of different strategic approaches. Look at what you see trending, and is there a way that you can add to it, not by just joining the conversation, but enhancing it, perhaps adding nuances or layers. A lot of people do this concept of newsjacking, where something's trending and they just join the conversation. But if you take the conversation, maybe it's a credit card breach at a major retailer, and you break it down and talk about the nuances of how this affects the average small business that has a credit card terminal, like a dry cleaner or a pizza business, and how they might be at jeopardy for the same sort of thing. That is a nuanced or layered approach that I could see a lot of journalists being interested in, because it's something that they're not sure about, or maybe it's talking about vulnerabilities that might be on a particular platform like Etsy or Shopify or eBay or something along those lines. And so that's a great way to sort of take something that tends to be oversaturated and make it very specific and nuanced and layered, so that, again, it seems like, hey, no one's talking about this. You're bringing it to attention. Let's focus on you and position you and your quotes in that space. And I find that that's a really great way to sort of stand out. And I think that finding anything like that in your marketplace, whether it's industry blind spots, things that are going on in your industry that the trade publications haven't really been reporting on. But every time you go to a conference, it's one of those things that you take people aside and say, hey, have you noticed this? And they go, yeah, I have. But yet it's nowhere in the trade publications. That could be a great opportunity for bringing that to life and being the person who broke that story and provided meaningful quotes about it. And so that's a really great way to position that.
Great. So, and then how do people find out about you? I mean, I think this is such a great, innovative, cutting edge way. If you're looking to do something different for your business in 2025, check out Mickie Kennedy. And Mickie, how do people find you?
So the website is ereleases.com. You can call, chat, or email. You'll only speak to editors. We have no salespeople. And we're pretty forward about how it works and the types of things you could do. I do recommend that free masterclass. It's very short. I took it from 12 hours down to an hour-long video to try to make it digestible for today's audience. And so it's really a great way to sort of do an audit of your business through the lens of these strategic types of releases you could be doing. And if you were to build a PR campaign of 6 to 8 releases using many of those, then not everyone's going to be a success, but you should have at least a couple that do very well. And again, you can do 6 to 8 releases through a service like eReleases for under $3,500. And so it's very affordable. And I think that when it comes to writing a press release, we offer writing, but I do encourage a lot of people to try it themselves because press releases aren't very complicated. And you certainly could use AI to assist you there because what you're writing is the press release and not the finished article. So I don't really have a problem with that. You just want to make sure that you plug in what the press release is going to be about and their strategic ideas, because AI has been trained on the 97% of press releases that don't work. And so you certainly don't want to let it loose deciding what you want to write about.
That's right. That's right. Well, thank you, Mickie. This has been an incredibly informative show. I'm excited about the content. I certainly am going to check out the masterclass. And I want to thank you, the audience, for joining us every week for another episode of how together we are going to turn all of this uncertainty into a major competitive advantage. I'll see you next week.